Okay. Let's see if we remember how to do it. This is our first podcast in 2 months? A month?
Months.
A
Yeah.
month. Okay.
We're different people now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry, and all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all illustrated for all the major publishers in the business. We've all taught illustration at universities, and we've all illustrated a bunch of books together.
That is correct. Each week we come at you guys with audience questions from the audience that are engaging, riveting, and going to help you guys out with your career. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you're going to learn something brand spanking new.
You know what we should do at the end of that? We should all chime in at the end of, but each time you're going to learn something new, like all three of us.
All three of us. Okay, Let's try it. Go for it.
Okay. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you're going to learn something
new.
Brand new.
No, we shouldn't do that. That was a bad idea.
Oh, boy.
That was working about as well as I thought it would. Now you guys wonder why it took us 3 years to come out with the Children's Book Pro class. That's why.
For real. So just to give you a little context of what's going on here, I know you as our listener get one of these podcasts every 2 weeks consistently, but we just took the summer off. Each of us were like overlapping, probably gone for 5 weeks combined. And so what we did was we recorded all of our summer podcasts prior to this. And now we've kind of
we've run out of banked energy.
Yeah, we've eaten through our backlog of recorded podcasts, and we're back into it. So we haven't talked like this together on a podcast for a good 5 weeks. So
a little while.
It's good to be back. You guys had good vacations, though. I had a good vacation. I think we're all like tired and worn out a little bit from them.
Mm-hmm.
We realize, or at least I realize, that you want to go on vacation for 4 days only. 3 days is too short. 5 days is when you start being like, okay, I need to get away from my family. I want to get back to my art. You realize how much we actually enjoy doing what we do, because when you're away from it, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to draw something.
I did the same thing where we flew into DC and we saw the Capitol, and then we went up to Philadelphia, and then we went up to New York City, and then, that was each a day long, and then we ended up in Long Island, and it started on Monday, and by Sunday I was like, I just sat and drew all day in my sketchbook. I didn't like play with anybody.
Your family let you do that? That's amazing.
I did. I mean, I kind of made it a family thing where I'm like, hey, let's sit at the table, and we all were doing crafts or puzzles or something like that. And Dad was drawing in his sketchbook, and I was just like, I got to do something creative. So yeah, I totally see that. But what do you guys think about seasonal approach to your career? Like your work year, I guess, to where you do a bunch of work at certain times of the years, and other time of the year it's more like a recharge.
I like it.
Or do you think it should be?
I love big projects where you get to dive in, and it's the only thing you're focused on for a while, and then it has an ending. To me, life is more meaningful and fulfilling than a daily grind that way.
Well, I was talking about that to my son yesterday, he's getting ready to start 5th grade, and I just realized like how that's why I thought school was so wonderful, and why I loved being a student, especially at the college age and study, because you're a serious student, but there's definite cycles you go through, and there's a beginning and an end, and then there's a recharge period in between, and it's sort of built in. And then I became a teacher at the college level, and the same thing happened. It's intense for a while, and then you get the break, and then all of a sudden you go back to, and I told my son yesterday, I was like, enjoy this now, because as an adult, you just start working and it never ends. Like that's sort of the way we've gone about building our lives. It's sort of crazy, in my opinion.
That's a good point, because it's like you raise a child to be like used to this cadence of a semester, a break, a semester, a long break, a semester, a break, a
Exactly.
semester, a long break, over and over and over for 12 years. And then in college, the same thing, another 4 years. And then you start your career and you get a week of vacation,
And that's
2
if
weeks
you
of
can take it
vacation.
off. I've read
Right.
that a lot of Americans don't even take the vacation. They can't get it off, and they got their cell phone and iPad with them. So then there's no break.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's awful. I think everybody should have summers off, and that should just be a normal thing. And if you're a essential worker kind of thing, grocery stores or other stuff, then you have other times in the year maybe that, because somebody has to work at some point, otherwise everything's closed.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it's interesting. Well, we've got some questions here. Should we dig into them?
Let's
do
dig.
it. Okay.
Let's do it.
First one comes from Lily, and she says, "What if I don't like storytelling?" So she says, "Hey guys, I joined SVS and I love the podcast and classes. Thank you very much. I love drawing in an illustrative style, but I'm not drawn to narrative work like books, comics, etc. I'd love to make prints and greeting cards and design patterns for fabrics, wallpaper, stationery, and the like. Is it a viable career path, and where should I start? Thanks for all you do." So what do you guys think? Is this she likes to illustrate, but she's not one to tell stories?
Mm-hmm.
I love this question. I love this question, because this person has done more for themselves than I think they realize. And everybody should do this. This person has identified exactly what they want to do and exactly what they don't want to do. And so they are poised and primed to get their career going. I wish everybody had this kind of clarity for this kind of question, because there is absolutely a huge market for that stuff. It's the licensing and sort of marketing trade, advertising kind of stuff, where you're doing prints and cards and all that kind of stuff for the greeting card industry. If you go to like Surtech, and we'll put a link in the show notes, is one of the biggest licensing shows of the year. It happens in New York once a year. I don't know what's happening with COVID, but surely there'll be some online version of it, or maybe a modified in person. But pretend like COVID's not here. That's the one everybody goes to. You show up with your 200 prints of wallpaper, shower curtain kind of designs, gift wrap paper, and companies like Target will license it from you. And likewise, there is licensing agents that deal just with this kind of work. My agency, the Wright Group, has a whole division that's just for this exact thing.
Yeah.
I might remind listeners that at SVSLearn.com, the sponsor of our podcast, we have a couple of classes on licensing.
Yeah.
By Gina
Amazing
Jane.
Classes.
And
Very good.
She was one of my students at UVU, and I found out that she had a whole career. So she was, I believe, when she took my class, she was in her 50s, and she had a whole career in licensing, but wanted to go into children's books. And so after school, and when we started, got SVS going, I said, I know the person to do this, because she had an agent, and she had made a lot of money doing licensing, and so she taught the class for that. But that's a good point. Another thing is, we were talking earlier today about one of our students in the Children's Book Pro class who started a whole business on Etsy, and I don't know if we want to go into that, because I'm going to actually interview her on my YouTube channel. But the eye-opening, like, she backed into this 6-figure career, which is making graphics for T-shirts, and it was a niche market that I had never thought about, that just kind of she stumbled into. And so we started riffing on other things that we could do just to start an Etsy shop overnight. And I was thinking, maybe that's a thing. If you're a thing for Lily here, is to go on Etsy and start looking for shops that have lots of, artist shops that have lots of sales. You might even get some ideas just from seeing what other people are doing.
Yeah. I mean, a huge, probably the biggest example of this is like Rifle Paper Company, right? And that's a husband and wife team, started out of their parents' apartment garage, I think. And it's now this booming business of stationary swimsuits mugs, like anything you can print a pattern on, they've done it, and it's just these beautiful flower patterns. It's
Oh, these
it's
are
great
nice.
stuff.
This is a great site to get some inspiration on sort
It's
of what's
called Rifle.
selling.
Yep, Rifle Paper Company.
Yeah, it's really good looking stuff.
I love
Really
it.
good
My
looking
wife,
stuff.
she always has either like a to-do list pad of paper from these guys or a calendar or something, and every time she gets a new one, I'm like, hold on, let me, and I flip through it and I'm like, oh, this is so good, this is so well done. I want to do the same thing, but maybe with robots or something.
I tell you one thing, I mean, if you get so many ideas from just seeing how somebody else is doing something, like just clicking through this website. I'm on one of their peel and stick wallpapers, and they basically took the same design, did 5 different colorways of it. And that's so brilliant. Why can't I take an image? I sell a bunch of prints. Why don't I take an image and do a day version of it and a night version? I mean, why we don't do that? Like, for some reason, we're sort of illustrators. A lot of times they're just one and done. Here's the illustration. Now I'm going to move on to the next illustration.
Yeah.
But these other people figure out all these different ways to sort of market the same image. You know what I mean? It's on a card, it's wallpaper, it's different colorways. It's just smart, in my opinion. It's the difference between somebody who likes to draw and somebody who's a business.
Right. You remember Sarah Jane Wright as well?
Yeah.
Like, so what she'll do is, or I don't know if she's still doing that, but consistently has done it in the past, is she'll design a fabric. So it might be like ocean sail themed, so it's like kids playing by the beach, and it's these nice cool patterns. She'll have a print that goes with it. She'll have different colorways of it, and it's a way to illustrate but not have to make a children's book from it. So yeah, it's a totally viable career, and I'd say
gotta
lean
be
into
creative.
it.
The thing that I love about being an artist is no one can really compete with you. They can't take your designs and compete with you. Whereas if you're a reseller of other people's products, in other words, if you buy a product that someone else has manufactured, and you try to sell it in your store, other people can compete with you with that exact same product, right? So like any of the box stores, you can get the same exact thing in another store for cheaper. So you're competing on price. Whereas as an artist, you compete with your creativity for the most part, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, next question. This is from Owen. Jake, Lee, and Will, I have had this debate with parents, friends, and even professors. Do you think art is a talent where certain people are born with an advantage or a head start, a natural ability to create art? Or do you believe that could be like a rhyme, like a rap? Do they have an advantage, a head start, a natural ability to create art?
Oh my God! Please, Daniel,
edit that out. Daniel, save us.
We just lost half our audience. No, thank you very much.
Okay, sorry. Or do you believe that art is a refined skill where everyone starts the same and years of practice and experience separate good artists from unartistic people? Curious what your thoughts are on this topic. Best, Owen. What do you guys think? I got some thoughts on this,
It's
but
a loaded topic right here.
It is.
Sadly, this is the C student dilemma.
Go into that.
It's always I've posed this question to teachers before, and nobody wants to admit the fact that this exists. But there is the C student. The C student typically is somebody who is really into illustration, really does the work, and will do any amount of the work, and yet doesn't have that, for lack of a better term, X factor to get them to be the A student. There will always be a level of talent. Talent's a weird word, but there'll be just a level of ability that comes easier for some people and harder for other people. And I feel like I can train anybody to be good, but I can't train anybody to be great and to be the level where you.
Now you're talking about what skills exactly?
I'm talking about the ability to make an image that other people will like and buy.
Right. Because what you're leaving out of the conversation is the concept, the high concept, the creativity in idea. Which, right. So there's two. and sometimes they're both combined. Well, they're combined in various percentages. Like I think of it as you have creativity on one axis and you have craftsmanship on the other. And there's lots of ways to be successful. The one way to be, like you're saying, the eternal C, is to not be very creative in ideas or in craftsmanship. That's the losing combination pretty much.
You could have amazing creativity and draw horribly and still be successful.
Right. And we can think of properties like the oatmeal. I love to use Matthew Inman as an example of that. And
good point.
The first person
he is the worst artist. No,
he's not. He'll be the first one to tell you. You know that
art isn't priority. I mean, his art gets the job done. Kind of like The Far Side with Gary Larson.
Right.
Like The Simpsons too. I mean, nothing great about that.
But I think The Simpsons, if you look at Matt Groening's original stuff, it was getting the job done. But I think The Simpsons, the artists on The Simpsons elevated it. I think it has je ne sais quoi that you wouldn't have found it necessarily.
It's got its own style, that's for sure. I mean, and the people that work on it are phenomenal artists. But just the general style, not something you'd be impressed by. Like I don't know, Flux or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's an appeal to its simplicity and its graphic.
All right, let's not derail. I can see the shift. That's a 45-minute discussion on this
on whether The Simpsons is art or not.
The problem with the C student is can the C student be elevated to be an A student? And the problem there is you got the C student who has a marginal level of ability, but a huge level of interest. The problem is you also have the A level student who also has the same level of interest. So that person's always going to excel. I always tell my students, and it's a tough pill to swallow, but everybody sort of ends up where they should. I've never seen somebody who's not very good end up in a position that's fantastic. And I almost always see people who are good end up where they should. They end up the work finds them eventually if the good work is there and they keep getting it out there. They get success.
I have seen some massive improvements though that I never predicted. And
I agree with that.
And what I have noticed in teaching is that I've had students that I have written off, and not I wasn't a teacher who had pets. I wasn't the certain people that I only cared about and the rest could go pound sand. It was just in my mind, I'm not inspired by someone who shows up where they haven't put any effort in. It's obvious that there's no effort and no time spent. And I'm talking obvious versus the students who you can tell they love it. But I have had probably a handful of students over the years who after school, I happen to catch something on social media and like, wait, what? And their level has gone up. If there's 10 levels, they went from a 4 up to a 7 or 8.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, and they can even go up to. I mean, everybody loves the story of, the Michael Jordan not making the sophomore basketball team,
right?
And then becoming Michael Jordan. So I mean, you can't see that potential. There was a guy that I started Art Center with, who was very marginal first year. As a matter of fact, when I first saw his work, I didn't think I wondered how he got in, because there's a pretty tough admissions process. And then, it didn't really shine until about halfway through, I started noticing it. Like, oh, whose is this one? And then by the end, rock star.
Right.
Can't predict who that's going to be. So does somebody with a middle level of talent assume that they're that person? And like, if I just put in more time, I'll end up with that? Or am I somebody who's going to beat my head? There's one of my students that I see posting on Facebook from time to time from way back. I mean, probably 10 years ago, is still the same level they were as in my sophomore class.
Can you, so here's a question. So I want to break this down a little bit more. So what are some of the raw talent ability that give you an edge in art? Okay. So like we all know that you can sit down and teach a person how to do light and shadow, but what's going to give a person the advantage of picking that up? Some people pick it up in a lesson, and other people it takes 5 years, right?
Right.
So I think one of them is incredible hand-eye coordination. So being able to tell your hand what it can do, what it should be doing, and the hand does it. I think the other one is visually being able to see things in a way that a very literal way. Okay, so and it's interesting when I walk around with like my kids who aren't, their level of noticing things aren't at my level, but I'll ask them, do you notice how the light is hitting the side of that building and how it's light on one side and dark? No, I didn't even think of that. Well, that's what I'm seeing as an artist. And do you see how this shape here compositionally, like this house and this tree right here, is just sort of appealing? It's a rule of thirds. They're like, what's the rule of thirds? I explain them the rule of thirds. And so now the kids are sort of picking up those things. But it's something that I think a person with raw talent gets it right away.
I think so, but people have to be taught to observe as well. Like I remember going into some of my first figure drawing classes and not really having any kind of goals. Like I was so nervous to be in there. When I was in school, I didn't do very well in figure drawing class. I mean, I just didn't. I was average. And then I took a figure drawing class from Don Sigmiller about 10 years ago because I wanted. It was neat. I could take a class for free because I was teaching at the university. Yeah. So I just attended his class, and I had more experience as an artist to be able to go, okay, Don, off the record, like, give me the 3 most important things I should be doing, because I feel like I sucked when I did this in school. And he's like, okay, and I can't remember all 3. But the one thing, one thing that he said, was, because I was starting to draw and I was going off the paper. And he's like, well, you really want to fit the figure perfectly onto your paper, not too small and not too big, so it's cropping out. And that really should be your goal. So the measuring, and I was like, this is great to just, and I'm sure when I was in school before, they probably told me that, and I probably just didn't even hear it.
Yeah.
But so I think, and what I'm getting at is, I think that we become more wise as we become older. So I've seen a lot of older students learn things faster.
You must be really wise if it comes with age.
So I think what it is, going back to like natural ability. So like this is the equivalent of like a basketball player being tall and being able to jump, having the fast twitch muscles as opposed to slow twitch. I think for the artist's equivalent is hand-eye coordination, the ability to like notice and see things, and these things again can be learned, I think, but there is some raw ability here, the ability to like replicate. So I think that's where like this is where I had this ability as a kid where you could put any sort of picture in front of me and I could look at it and copy it, as really closely, and that helped me a ton because I was able to learn a ton every time I copied a drawing or photograph or something like that. I think that, so those are kind of the 3 things. And then you apply those things to craft and you learn when to use light and shadow, and you learn when to use reds and blues, and when to use grays and browns, right? Color theory. And then you learn composition. All those things are sort of built on top of that. And then I think the creativity element, I think that can be learned as well. I think you could teach someone to be creative by doing certain exercises, certain techniques and I guess tactics to like unlock their brain and expose them to more things, even if it's just noticing the world around them better, and then teaching them to combine things that you wouldn't think to combine, which is what creativity is. So my answer is there's people who have some raw talent that makes this easier for them, but it can be learned, but it's harder. Does that make sense?
I totally agree. But if and I think that's where checklists, I think that's where me and Jake overlap a little bit. I don't know if Will makes checklists, actually. I should ask, but
I just made one for my next answer.
Oh, good. We'll see. We're all cut from the same cloth sword. Like, I always ask myself at the end, as I get into a piece, why would I want to look at this image? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like, what do I know what makes this image interesting for me? Now, maybe other people don't like it. Maybe they don't agree with it. But at least for myself, I ask myself that, how can I add something to this image that makes this better than it was, or than it was originally concepted. As a matter of fact, I did that with my last, like Jake said, we took 5 weeks off, hadn't painted in a long time. Saw an egret at my local little pond. I do a walk every morning when I wake up. And it was just a really great shot it with my iPhone. And it's just a great shot, just naturally, the egret against this dark background. It's a perfect silhouetted shape. So it already fit all the art requirements, like it's shape separation, it's good composition, it's a simple image. And then I got back home and I sort of sketched it, and I was like, oh man, that just needs, it's a good image, but it's not enough to be that interesting. And so I came up with this, the egret looks sort of stubborn almost in the way that they were posed. And so I just came up with this funny little, not funny, but this little narrative around it, with this little character kind of trying to rein this egret. You can see it on my Instagram page if you guys want to see it. But I'm not saying it's great art, but at least I asked myself, what is interesting about this egret? And the answer was nothing. Like it's just it fulfills some art requirements, good composition, good shape separation, and all that stuff. But it didn't really work. You just needed something more. And I think if enough people ask them, like I see so many children's book illustrators, they got the story about the bunny making cookies, and it's just so boring. It's like the most standard kids book stories, but there's nothing really that interesting about it. So I don't know, make the checklist and then try to elevate the image. And you can do that through a analytical process, like Jake's saying, like a learned process to walk through. Is the composition good? Are my values correct for what I'm trying to do? And then what's my concept, and why would someone find it interesting?
Yeah. Cool.
There's 4 things that we haven't talked about yet in this question. This is our best question of the day
so far,
I think.
I don't judge questions because they're all good. But whatever.
So the first one is I'll start out with a little story. When I was going to school at BYU in the illustration program, I got put on probation from, like, I didn't get let into the program, the BFA program. I got let in on probation, meaning I had 1 semester to prove myself. And I thought that I was in the top half of the class. And so it was really embarrassing to look at the list on the door. So there was 40 people applying, and they were going to take 20. So I'm like, well, I got the cut. I know that, but I was listed. There were 18 people listed, and then there were 2 under provisional. I'm like, what the heck does that mean, provisional? And it was me and Walt Wilcox, and he's a friend, so he won't mind me telling this story. And I was thinking, how in the world could you lump me in with him? He sucks. Like, this is even more embarrassing that it was me and him. You come to find out years later, he thought the same thing
right
of me.
I'm with Will Terry. He sucks.
Right.
That's great.
And so, but the thing is, I have always been convinced that I didn't belong there. Right. And maybe I did. But I think that there's something to be said for confidence, overconfidence in your ability. I think that's a trait that I see in a lot of artists, is that a lot of successful artists, they just have this confidence that if they can't, they'll figure it out. If they're not good at it now, they will be later. Right. And so I think that that's a necessary thing. If you're, and likewise, and here's why I say this, I've had students that were literally 10 times better than I was when I was in school, the best in the class. I'm thinking of a specific girl right now, and you tell them how good they are. I'm like telling this girl, like, you have the best shot at making it that I've ever seen. Like, she was amazing. And as soon as she got out of school, nothing. She didn't do anything with it at all. And I wonder, you know, she used to always, oh no, I don't know if I can do this, you know.
And you don't know if that's like from within or from outside, you know. It could be that there's people in her life that like, you're an artist, you're going to try and make it go.
I have no idea.
Okay.
The next thing I think is humility. I think as an artist, you have to have enough humility along with that confidence to say, teach me. I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. I need to know more. And there are a lot of students that I've taught that are so resistant to doing what you tell them to do, that they pound the same sand every day, doing the same mistakes. And you look at them and you're like, you're not learning. And I think it's because they have, they lack the humility to grow and to thrive. Right. I mean, like when you and I first started teaching, I asked for your drawovers because I wanted to see what you would do different. And I learned a lot from you. The next one is necessity. I think that a lot of people don't need the money. They're supported by a parent or a spouse or somehow, or they don't have a day job, and they don't have the necessity. I had to do it, which actually ironically goes to a question that we skipped today that we see all the time, which was that question was, I don't have the motivation. How do I get the motivation? In a nutshell, I'm not motivated. I want this career, but I don't know how to get going. I don't know how to draw. I don't know. And we skipped that question because I said, I don't know. I've tried to answer that one before, and I've never had that. I've always had enough necessity to where it's like, I will be hanging drywall or doing concrete work or plumbing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not good at anything else. So if I don't make this work, I'm doing something that I really don't want to do. Right. So I always just kind of got busy. And that's really my answer to that question. And then the last one on my little list that I just made here is aesthetics. I think that really good artists, that might be the thing that's within you. It's hard to teach aesthetic, but as you're creating art, there are things that you need to edit out. There are things that you need to omit that you can't. It's hard to train. You can to an extent, but you know, no. And then there are students I've taught that you say, who are your heroes? And they show you the art that they're looking at, and it's horrible.
And it's tough.
You know, and so then you're like, well, if your pedestal item is what most artists would look at and go, no, that's not good. Where do you go from there? I don't know. You know.
Yeah, that's a good list.
It's a great list.
I'm jealous of your list. All right, sufficiently answered, I would say. That question is. Next question. All right, stuck in a client rut. I will not wrap this one. How do I expand my reach? Stuck in a client rut. How do I expand my reach? Hi, guys. First of all, I love your podcast and never miss an episode. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you. And I wish you'd been my teachers when I went to school, if only. So I'm sorry. If only. Here's my question. I hate people gushing over us. I don't know how to respond to it. So I just lean into really appreciating it. So
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. Here's my question. I'm working illustrator represented by a big agency. I've been with them for 1.5 years, and it's been amazing, but I feel like I'm now working with 3 recurrent clients that are taking all of my time. I'm not complaining. It's great, but the type of work I'm doing isn't exactly what I want to be doing. I'm doing kid magazine illustrations, educational work, and most of all, chapter books for young readers. What I really want to do is picture books. That's my dream. But now all the work that I'm creating is not picture book portfolio worthy. I've made a couple of new pieces on my very limited free time. I'm a working mom, she says. that these pieces reflect the type of work I want to get, but what else can I do to reach new clients and actually get the type of work I want to be creating? I feel like my agent knows I'm working full time and isn't going the extra mile to get me what I want. How do I approach that? Even though it's worth noting that I did write and illustrate my own picture book, and they are currently trying to sell it to publishers. Any advice to get me out of this rut would be super welcome. Thank you again for all your teachings. Love you guys. So she isn't getting the work she wants. She has a children's book that's being shopped around. She'd like to get into children's books. What does she do here?
Do we have her? I'm looking for your email that you sent me for these questions. Do we have her contact? I mean,
Well,
like where?
She gave her
Yeah, her website's right there at the end, at the bottom of it. I put it in the chat so you can look at her art, and it is phenomenal. I think. Okay,
so here is the problem. This is everybody wants an agent, right? I mean, and I did too. And an agent, if they've got you busy, and you're working, you're making them money. They're not super, unless they're a good agent, really good agent. Big agent doesn't necessarily mean a good agent, by the way. They'll be satisfied with you just getting work and actually get mad at you for turning down work because you want it to go in a different direction. And I've had this happen. I know Will's had this happen too, this exact scenario happened to me where I'm like, they're sending me stuff. And I even remember one time they sent me a job offer where I had to do a sample piece and I had to match somebody else's style for the sample piece. And I just remember sitting there going, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Where I was like, oh my God, this is the wrong place for me to be, because if they're okay with this, they're not listening to anything that I'm saying. Because that is moving, not only is that moving me like equal, but it's actually making my career worse if I took that job, because then it takes me away from making the work that I want to make. And so it's I just question whether the agent truly has this artist's interest in mind, because they're not responding that way. Well, but have you, go ahead.
They can't fully. It's like if you take two circles and do the chart where there's overlap in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
It's the artist on one side and the agent's interest on the other. And the common ground is that you both want to make money, right? You both want to satisfy clients. But the agent is more interested in the money, and the artist has more of an interest in the type of work they're doing. And
right.
And often, I mean, a good agent, a really good agent who understands the long game will listen to their talent and try to make those circles closer together. But all too often, and I know she said don't mention the agent in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. We won't mention her either, but she's good. I mean, this artist is good, and the problem is she's good in a way that I could see educational clients loving her as well as trade. And so why would they give up it's sort of the golden goose? Why would an agent want to pull you off of that if you're already doing
what's broken? We're getting you work. And here from the agent standpoint, they've got, especially this agency has a lot. They've got a lot of talent that I know personally is not getting work. And I know that because I know them. And
yes, I've heard stories, recent stories about this agency too. I got to tell you guys about. I don't know.
But anyway, so if they have squeaky wheels that aren't even getting any grease, and this artist is getting a bunch of work, they're not going to be concerned at all. This particular one. So
by the way,
does she go get a new agent?
This is the same agent that I had.
Me too. So anyway, but
does she go get a new agent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that is one possible solution. The other thing is she's already making the transition. She's let her agency know where she wants to move to, and that's a good thing. Like, you need to keep reminding them of that. I think make sure they know, and then you're writing and illustrating and having them shop it around. You're making the right changes where you could be happy with this agent in a year or two. Things could turn around just in what you're already doing.
Yeah. The other thing is reaching out to publishers and editors yourself. And when they say, oh yeah, we're interested, then you go to your agent and be like, hey, I got a book a deal here that, that you can, then you can just hand over to them. That might be a way to do it. I don't know if that's super kosher, but
now, what are you saying to do?
Say that
exactly?
again.
Instead of having your agent shop you around, you shop yourself around.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that. I've had.
No, that would look so bad. I mean, unless you totally cleared that with your agent first, that would look so unprofessional.
Lee's a rule follower.
Don't do what I just said. Whatever.
Well, the reason I actually did that and I got reprimanded.
Oh, okay.
I'm not kidding. It's true.
You're
do
right,
it, but at your own risk.
Do it at your own risk, because you want to. You're a team with your agent, and you don't want to appear like you're doing something without their knowledge. It looks unprofessional.
However, there is a situation where I think it's totally kosher to do that, and here it is. If you're at like ALA and you're walking around meeting editors,
totally different.
You can pitch a book idea and say, and I've watched these conversations happen. Oh, who are you with again? I'm with this agency. Okay, well, I really like this. If I like it, should I contact you or them or what? Go ahead and contact them. So you're making the as the artist, you're
nothing wrong with that. I mean, that makes perfect sense. But I think you also have to set yourself up for, like Jake said, let your agent know this is what I want to do, and then the ball's sort of in your court to say, and I'm not taking any more of this kind of work, or I will take this amount of work. I mean, you set the guidelines, and if the agent balks at that or has a problem with it, then you know what to do. Then it's time to leave the agent. But if you tell your agent, hey, I want to do books and I don't really want to do this educational stuff anymore, and I'm okay with losing that income for the short term, and they say, okay, let's come up with a plan for that, then you're fine. You just have to, you can't do both.
You got to remember who works for who. So you're not, the agent isn't your boss. Your agent works for you.
Who does number 2 work for?
That's right. Number 1. Right? That's the answer to that?
Yeah.
Okay. So good luck. I think she'll find success wherever she wants to go.
I'm going to pitch it. We have this show on, we have a forum where we have a post dedicated to this show. And we also have a YouTube channel where you can watch our beautiful faces speak these words. I'd love to see in the comments how many people think we should start our own agency. What do you think?
Are you crazy?
Well,
we're going to be agents.
I'll put up in the comments that no, I don't want to start my own agency.
I think it would be a blast to be an agent, because to come from the artist side where you're a true working artist and come in there, man, you would just be the publishers would probably hate you because you're so demanding, but you'd be an advocate for.
You guys need to know that Lee has more energy than Jake and I put together. He'll it'll be 8 a.m. and Lee's like, I just finished the remodel on my kitchen.
I am an hour or two ahead of you guys.
I just tore out all the steps and refinished them with mahogany.
And I just lifted weights and yeah.
I do have energy.
My bike 10 miles to go get coffee.
I know I need some kind of depressant or something to slow me down.
I like the idea of negotiating and hooking artists up with books and stuff, but it sounds like an awful lot of administrative stuff that I do not want to do.
Oh, so that's a good point. Never mind. I'm canceling the offer. If there's any paperwork involved.
What if the idea is to start an agency and we hire a bunch of agents to work for us?
There we go. That's actually pretty good. But then we run into the same problems that then we start needing our artists to work for us, and so we're like encouraging them to take the educational job.
Right.
No,
and then
that
we
would
have
never
to hire a manager to manage all the agents.
Yeah, never mind. It's too much work. I'd rather just go outside and play.
No, but you know what is a good idea? A really good idea? That's a bad idea. But a good idea is a publishing company.
Now this we are chatting about for reals. And then we can battle the other agents.
Yes. We want to do it. We want to start publishing people's books, not just ours, but wouldn't it be cool to these artists that are being like overlooked because we see them before publishers, can like look past all their hotshot big name people, and we give them their first shot at like a book, so then they can say, yes, I've been published. Here's
my big goal there is like the tagline that I would pick for our publishing company if we made one is letting artists make the books they want to make without a bunch of stupid people in the middle second guessing it. I would seriously rather have a failed book, but it's the book that an artist wanted to make than a bunch of people weighing in and diluting a book into where it's not interesting anymore. Yeah,
and saying, well, this doesn't go well with 3-year-olds. We need something that both 6-year-olds and 3-year-olds will appreciate.
It needs a bully, a safe bully. There's a lot of interesting work out there. I think that's a good idea.
That'd be cool. All right, should we finish this out?
Let's wrap.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody. 3 Point Perspective is made possible by SVSLearn.com, where becoming a great illustrator starts. Our podcast is edited by Daniel Tu, who also is our podcast production person who makes sure this thing keeps the wheels on and gets out to everybody. So thank you, Daniel Tu, for all you do.
That was a wrap.
Yeah. Thank you to Daniel too for all that you do too.
Oh.
Maybe he can edit in a sick beat to go.
Now you have to try to do a rap with Lisa Fott. That's a tougher one.
I like a shout out to Lisa Fott. She's the one who fought all our battles. Our rap battles. These guys, you should see them. They're blushing for me. No, Lisa. Special thanks to Lisa Fott, who is our social media email specialist, and also just does a ton of work behind the scenes for SVS Learn. Special thanks to her. David Bro, who is our bro, and helps us out with all of our production stuff on svslearn.com. Shout out to him as well. And if you, like Leah mentioned earlier, if you wanted to take part in this conversation, find us on YouTube, leave a comment in the comments, go over to svslearn.com forum. It's free to join, sign up, become a member at the forum. And, if you take issue with something or you feel like we left something out, please join in the conversation there. Just look for this episode. It's episode 90. And, I want to say that's it. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Hey, did you guys see Old, the new M. Night Shyamalan movie?
No. Is it good?
Old. It is. I'll say this. It was wild. It was not typical movie fare that you would expect. It was like a Twilight Zone episode turned into a movie. It was fun. Yeah.
Okay, that's good because with The Sixth Sense, that was such an incredible movie and I was all on board for him. And everything I've seen since from him has been a letdown.
Like After
everything?
Earth? Not
every single film since then.
I'm trying to think of one that hasn't been a letdown.
Okay, let's go through.
He did.
Unbreakable was a letdown.
Unbreakable. No, that one was a level 5.5 out of 10.
Signs was good.
Signs was a letdown?
Signs was such a letdown.
The one where they were jumping off buildings, that one wasn't good.
The Village, was that a letdown?
That was good.
That was a good movie.
The Village. Maybe I stopped watching after a certain point. Village. Let me check that one out.
Not the Village people.
Show Village to Emerson. See what he thinks.
Is that the one where the plants are angry?
No. What about
that was?
Didn't he do After Earth?
I'll tell you this. That has a 43% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
The Village does?
Oh yeah.
But Lee.
Garbage.
It's still good.
All right. I'm game. I want him to be good.
Hold on. One more. Okay, so I agree. He had some flops.
What about After Earth? Wasn't that a flop?
That one was a flop. Last Airbender was a flop. But remember Split?
Yeah, Split. He did Split.
Split. I don't even remember.
Was cool.
Lee, if you haven't seen Split, you don't know that M. Night is back.
That may have been during the baby years.
No, that's recent. That's like 4 years ago.
No, it's older than that.
2016.
Yeah.
What? No, not 4 years. 5.
It's got 77% Rotten Tomatoes. That's better.
Yeah. So watch Unbreakable again with new eyes. Watch.
And Sixth Sense is one of the best movies. It's top 10 for me.
Unbreakable had potential, but it didn't live up to it. But I didn't think it was terrible. It just wasn't great. Like The Sixth Sense was so extraordinary.
And Signs was decent.
Signs I give a 6 out of 10.
So here's what I'll say about
movie.
Here's what I'll say about Old. Okay. If you are an M. Night apologist, you will come away enjoying it.
That's me.
If you don't like his movies at all, you'll hate it.
I'll like it.
49% Rotten Tomato score.
That is the reviewers, the critiquer.
Critics.
What are they called? Critics, critiquers.
Oh, let me see. Hold on.
But
The
what does
audience, 52%.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's more than half.
You've been swayed. Here's the thing. Some of my favorite movies, like The Edge with Anthony Hopkins, is a 50%er.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so here's the thing. That's why RT is no good. Why my system that I told you about would be way better is because there are people that hate your genre, and you are going to give your genre 10 or 20 points just because it's your genre.
I'm going to do a test of that right now. Before I Google them, or I'm on the Rotten Tomatoes site right now. I'm going to enter in my 5 favorite movies and see what the score is.
Okay, let's hear it.
The Shining.
What?
The Shining. The Cabbage Patch Kid movie.
The Shining. Let's see what The Shining is.
House 2.
The Shining, 93. The Shining, 93%. Okay, the next
Shrek.
one.
Shrek.
The Ernest movie. I know Lee was talking about the Ernest movie.
Pee Wee Herman, second movie.
It's called Big Top Pee Wee, and it's underrated.
Now I can't think of it. I can't think of a single other movie. Pulp Fiction.
All right, now that's a good movie.
The critics love.
Can I tell you what your top
They love
10 should be?
Pulp Fiction, 96%. Okay, so
How about Shawshank? That's got to be one of your favorites.
Well, I loved Shawshank Redemption. Okay, 97. So far, my average score is a 97.
Put in Toy Story 2.
That's 100%.
And look what you're going to get.
But they always get, they always get
100%.
100%.
87% audience score. So,
Yeah.
Put in Snowpiercer.
but anyway, my point is, look at these scores. They're fantastic movies. We can all agree. And they're
you picked fantastic movies as your favorite
come on.
movies.
I'm not
Okay,
saying.
let's enter in Rango.
I never said that The Edge
let's enter in
was
Rango.
a top
What does
10.
Rango say?
Entered in Rango, 88%.
Okay. But do you like movies that are bad?
No. What about this? Let's enter in. Wait, you said we can't
Like
enter in this.
King Kong
Shyamalan.
versus Godzilla. I love that movie.
Oh,
What did they say?
well, that's too genre based for you. You could literally, it would have just been a still image of Godzilla, and you'd be like, "That's pretty good."
What do they say? King Arthur Legend. What does it say?
It's a
King Arthur Legend of the
It's
Sword.
a 56. King Arthur,
Yeah, Legend of.
Legend of the Sword.
It's like 60, I think.
Ooh. So this one's interesting because, and this is one I would give a little bit of credibility to for what you're saying, Will, because you got a reviewer score of 31, you got an audience score of 70, and I tend to lean towards the audience. I'm only giving you guys audience.
Here's the
scores,
thing about
they
that
tend to be
movie
more correct.
is if you look at who it came out against at the week that it came out, you'll realize why it got overlooked.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes it's not rated correctly because of that same thing. But in the high side, like Black Widow, I saw Black Widow in the theater with Emerson, fully wanting to love it, and it was not good. And it's got a score of 92%, and it was not a great movie.
Really? I got to check that out now. 92%, huh?
92. I'd be curious to what you think. I guess part of the problem was it was one of those ones where they just they sit down. There's a lot of dialogue, and they're just explaining what they're doing. They're not showing it through action. They're not moving the plot along. They're just like, well, here's the reasons I'm doing this thing. And, you know, I mean, like
too much exposition.
Whew. Talk about, you know, they were telling, not showing. Let's put it that way.
Did you hear about Scarlett Johansson suing Disney?
Yeah.
Over that?
I saw that.
Yep.
Yeah. About the launch on the online launch.
Yeah. And I think it has less to do with her calling up her agent and being like, what's going on here? And more like the agency who probably gets a cut is like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Other movies are making a ton of money launching that way. So it's tough to make that argument.
Yeah. Who knows?
Oh, but the contract, did you see the detail? The contract, she only gets off the theatrical release. So the fact that they launched it online, okay.
Yeah. No, I think this is less about this particular incident and more about how does Hollywood move forward in this hybrid sort of launching system.
I say give them a cut of both. I mean, why make one a cut and the other one not a cut? It's the same audience, it's the same draw. I don't understand what the difference would be.
Mm-hmm. I heard a podcast yesterday that was talking about this, and they're like, okay, so she's going up against Disney, the Disney lawyers, and they're like, Disney could have gone into her home, shot and killed her family, and they'd probably still win this this trial.
So do they think she's going to lose?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know, man. That's some big guns. If it was just Joe Schmo or like, you know, some production assistant who was suing him,
right?
Maybe that's a big, and it's not just what the lawsuit is; it's public perception, and Disney's very cognizant of public perception.
That's why I think this is something that people have wanted to do for a long time, but they never had the the perfect storm of the right actress or actor, the right agency, the right film to have this.
I mean, I wonder what if the contract says that they're not supposed to release it until X number of days after the theatrical release goes down. I don't see how Disney wins.
Yeah, who knows? Unless
there's some ambiguity there, but maybe there is. You know, everybody thinks their side is clear in favor of themselves.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, should we record a podcast?